There was a woman that I met at Atlanta, and she was telling me this story. Driving down the road after being at a conference, and she was just so excited and so, just so in love with the Lord. And she's like, God, I'll do anything. Tell me what you want me to do. Tell me where you want me to go. I'll do anything for you. And all of a sudden, she felt like just this pull, like she had to turn to the right. And so she turned right down the street, and then she felt again this pull that she had to go. She said she did that for several miles, and she ended up in front of this convenience store. And she said, just kind of one of those Quickie Mart type places. And she said, the Lord spoke. She said she felt like God was speaking to her inside of her and said, go inside and do a handstand in front of the clerk. Go stand on your head in front of the clerk. And she's like, really? And so she gets up the courage, she goes inside, but there were people inside, and the only message was to do it in front of the clerk. And so she goes to the back of the store, and she said, I was reading all the ingredients on the potato chip bags and all this, because she said, I was so scared to go up and actually stand on my head in front of the clerk. And she said, but there was a pole there. And she goes, I'd never really stood on my head very much, but there was a pole right there. And she goes, so I waited till the whole store was cleared out, and there was just the clerk standing there just by himself. And she goes, I was like, now how do I do this? And so she walked up and she said, hey, guess what I can do? And he's like, what? And she said, look. And so she gets up against that pole and she stands on her head in front of the clerk. And while she's upside down, she sees him drop his head and shake his head. And she gets down and she sees that he's crying, and she said, what's going on? And he said, not 30 minutes before you came in this store, I had just told God, if you're real, send somebody in here to stand on their head. True story. And she looks at me, she goes, you want to meet him? And I'm like, he's here? And she goes, yeah, she's right back here. He ended up coming to church and gave his life to Christ, all that. But what if she had just ignored that? Now, let me ask you this. What if she did it and the guy had not prayed the prayer? What would he have said? Oh, that's cool. Good for you. But we're always afraid to take the risk. It's almost like we're not afraid to take risk if God's not involved. But if God's involved, we're afraid to take the risk. And yet that's the place where we should be most comfortable, is when God's involved in it. Hi, we're in session 4 and so excited about this week and what's going to be happening. I want to encourage you this week to just open your hearts, open your minds, because we're going to be doing and exploring treasure hunting. And what this is going to do is we're going to stop and pray and ask the Lord to show us things, to give us clues of where treasure is that we can find. The treasure that we're looking for are people. People that need a touch from God, people that need an experience with God, people that need to know Him better. And so we're going to take time in this session, and we're all going to pray. You're going to clear your minds, and you're going to trust that first thought, words, picture, color, whatever it is that you see. It may be an area, it may be a park, it may be a grocery store, and trust that picture. And you're going to ask the Lord to give you more details about that. Write those down, and then together share it as a group and go out and look for the treasure. And when you find the person who seems to match, or the area that seems to match it, tell them, say, look, God showed us all these clues, and we think you're the treasure that God is having us hunt for. And begin to share with them how much the Lord loves them and communicate with them. This is going to be an exciting time. I hope you're ready. And if you're not, still go, because you're going to see God show up in an amazing way. So as you guys are getting ready to go, I just want to pray for you, just a prayer of impartation and just an encouragement in going out. So let's do that now. Father, we thank you for your presence, your power. I thank you for the work of your Holy Spirit in our lives. And Lord, as we go out as a group, as we go out as individuals, we go out as ambassadors of you, ambassadors of Jesus Christ. And I pray, Lord, that you would just speak through these guys, that you would give them wisdom in the moments, and that you would give them understanding of everything that they're doing, and to be sensitive to your Spirit. Lord, as we step out to be your hands, your feet, your expression. And I pray blessing on each and every one. Right now, be filled with the Spirit of God. Be filled with the reality of His presence, and go as the ambassadors of Christ. We thank you for that privilege, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you guys.